भगवते वासुदेवाय।
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
So we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 13, verse number 8. It's verses 8 through 12. Amanikvam adambhitvam ahimsakshantir acharyopasanam shaucham स्थैर्यम् आत्मविनिग्रहः इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनहङ्कार एव च जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुःख दोषानुदर्शनम् असक्तिरनभिविसङ्ग पुत्रदारगृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम् अरति जनसंसदि अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वं तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानम् इति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यद् अतो अन्यथा. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever they may be, is ignorance. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I don't know if you all had an opportunity to see the text message I sent to read the purport. Yes, it was too late. 6-page purport. So I thought I will cover all the points of Srila Prabhupada that are mentioned in the purport in the lecture, so that we don't waste our time just reading the purport. But I would recommend that when you go home, you go through the purport, all the whole purport of 6 pages. So what does this verse indicate? Krishna is, of course, Arjuna had asked a question, what is knowledge? So here Krishna is saying that these 20 items that are listed in this verse, there are 20 of them. He says that is knowledge. And these items of knowledge are basically there so that we can disentangle ourselves. Right now we are entangled. We are in this body, we are entrapped in this body, we are on the bodily concept of life. So here, this knowledge will help us to disentangle ourselves. Why is this? What is this body made of? We already learned before, is made of 24 elements, right? So this knowledge is given to us by Krishna so that we can become free. And this knowledge, if we take on, understand, contemplate on it, and practice it, that will lead us to unalloyed devotional service. Unalloyed means not mixed with anything, right? It's absolutely pure. So that is what is going to lead us. Now, so out of these 20 items, most important item is unalloyed devotional service. That is the whole purpose of the whole Bhagavad Gita. If unalloyed devotional service is not achieved, then all these other items have no value at all. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining, that if we take up Krishna conscious devotional service, then the other qualities that are mentioned, the 19 of them, they will be, we will develop those automatically. They will know, there will be no need to make extra effort. Oh, today I'm going to concentrate on humility, and then tomorrow I'm going to concentrate on, accepting a bona fide spiritual. No, this will all become automatic once we start performing a devotional service. So, and the basis of devotional service is chanting. So when we chant, that is how we start developing our spiritual life. So chanting is very, very important. Now, one of the qualities, or one of the items mentioned in this list of knowledge is accepting a bona fide spiritual master. If I don't know if you'll remember, but in chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, we already covered this, where in verse number 34, Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadyakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. The bona fide spiritual master is tattva darshina, means he has seen the truth. So one must approach, Krishna is telling Arjuna, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. Then what will be the result? The self realized soul will impart knowledge unto us. So knowledge doesn't come by reading Bhagavad Gita. Knowledge doesn't come by just hearing Bhagavad Gita. Yes, we will get the theoretical knowledge, but how to put it into practice, we can understand and receive it from a bona fide spiritual master. So now I'm going to talk about, as Srila Prabhupada has in his purport talked about each item separately. So first he starts with humility. If you see the purport, the first thing he talks about is humility, because in the verse also Krishna is talking about humility first, right? So what does he say? What exactly does humility mean? It means one must not expect to be honored by others. You see? That, oh, I am so great. If someone is passing by, they need to stop and wish me because I'm great, or that person should praise me, or, make me feel good or whatever, or glorify me. No, one should not expect honor from others, but still one must give respect to others. Yes, yes. And one should not get affected by duality, happiness, distress, cold, heat, success, failure. No, we've already learned in the previous chapters of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that one must not get affected by dualities. And also humility also means that one does not hanker for fame, that, oh, I want to become famous. Or also sometimes people pretend, even pretend to say, oh, I'm religious, I'm a very religious person. Seriously, I'm a very religious person. What does religion mean? Religion means laws of God. So whatever the laws are given to us by Supreme Lord in the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, that is religion, not man-made religion, a rubber stamp. No, no. So one must not pretend to be religious if one is not following the laws of the Supreme Lord. So humility also means that one must think less of oneself, which means not less in the sense, oh, I'm fallen, I'm useless, not in that sense. But don't think too much about yourself, like always I, me, and mine. So that is what is humility. Next, Prabhupada talks about in his purport is pridelessness. So if there is humility, then there's no pride, right? It's very simple. So that pridelessness will automatically develop once we become humble. And how can we become humble? By following the instructions. The first instruction is Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. We should always be chanting. Chanting is very, very important. Now, when next item Krishna talks about is non-violence. Generally, what does non-violence mean? Don't harm others, right? Neither with weapons or knives or whatever it is. That is not non-violence.
Yeah, I was wondering, he's talking on the battlefield.
Yes, yes, he is at the battlefield and he's talking about non-violence. How is that possible, right? Generally, we think harming the body is violence. And if you don't harm the body, that's non-violence. No. Actual meaning is to not put others in distress, either by our actions or even by our words. You should not put anyone in distress. So if we are not elevating others in spiritual knowledge, if like we have been given this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, and if we are not sharing this with others, that's violence, because we are not helping them to elevate themselves from miseries. We are not helping them by we are not helping them by giving them this knowledge, the spiritual knowledge. Then that becomes violence. So no knowledge, if people don't have knowledge, that means they are going to continue to suffer, because they will still remain in the bodily concept of life, and then they will just go on through this whole cycle of birth and death again and again and again. So if we do not share this knowledge, and if we do not remove the suffering of others, that is violence. So this is how Prabhupada explains non-violence. Next comes tolerance. Now, if we get insulted, we do get affected, right? Why do we get affected? Because we're so attached to this body. We are still on the bodily concept and we are thinking only about the body. We are entrapped in this body. So we are, like supposing I insult someone, right? And that person says, why are you doing that? And I say, it's your karma. That would be ridiculous, isn't it? First of all, you're insulting that person. And then on top of that, you're saying, it's not my fault, it's your karma. That's not the right way to explain it, right? It's very important to understand that to tolerate anything, whether it is, mi- it could be an insult, or it could be, verbally, it could be physically, or whatever it is. Tolerance will only come when one has knowledge and understanding. That is very, very important, right? We can't just, tell someone, oh, Bhagavad Gita says tolerate. How do you do that? Right? All these items that Krishna is talking about, they are very, very, very important. Very important for us not only to understand, but even to apply it in our day-to-day life, right? If we are insulted and we do not get affected by that, that means we are not on the bodily concept. You understand, right? We have to go beyond that bodily concept. Why am I again and again repeating bodily concept? Because we are on the bodily concept, right? We talk about something that we are in, something that we don't have. I talk about it, right? If we were self-realized, we all will be sitting here chanting and dancing and very, very happy and ecstatic, in ecstasy, right? But because we are entrapped in this body and because we are conditioned, then it is very important to understand that yes, this is a place of misery, we are suffering. It is also because of our past karma. But if right now, if we start practicing Bhagavad Gita, then we will build the tolerance level. Our tolerance level will go up, because we will understand that whatever is happening because of something that I did, not because something someone else did. Someone else is just a via media for giving us back our reactions for our karma. So tolerance will only happen, first of all, when we understand that these are the items which this knowledge that Krishna is giving us in this verse 8 through 12. Very, very important that one after the other we start developing these qualities, and they will come directly and not directly, automatically. We will develop these qualities automatically if only we can start from the first rung of the yoga ladder, right? The very first thing that we can start doing is chanting the holy names of the Lord. When we do that, then when Krishna sees, what does he say? Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam satheva bhajami ham. That as one surrenders unto me, I reward them accordingly. And which is very fair, right? So here, if we understand that these are the different items of knowledge and one of them is tolerance, then if we practice devotional service on a daily basis, then we will be able to tolerate. Now you all have heard about Prahlad Maharaj, right? I mean, if we think about what his father did to him, our misery is nothing compared to that, right? What did Hiranyakashipu do to Prahlad Maharaj, who was only 5 years old? Throw in boiling oil, a mad elephant, poisonous snakes, thrown from the mountain, burnt in the fire. Did we go through all that? No, our misery is nothing compared to all that. But he, because he had formed faith in Krishna, because he had purified himself, because he was humble, because he had all these 20 items of knowledge, right? He was practicing unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and that's why he was always protected and he was not disturbed in any circumstance. So, what was the main thing that was important in Prahlad Maharaj's life? Determination, no matter what. He did not give up the worship of the Lord just because the father was troubling him. Right? If someone, fries us like a pakoda, we are not going to think about, anything, it will be like, oh no, my body, I got to save my body. Yes, we got to save our body, protect our body. But the thing is, the consciousness need to be purified. So he was very determined, and that is why he was so advanced spiritually. Now, simplicity. Next item is simplicity. Prabhupada explains in the purport, simplicity means being straightforward, not being afraid to be honest. That is very important. Honest even with the enemy. You see? That is simplicity. Simplicity doesn't mean we wear torn clothes or, eat maybe once a day and, not have anything, for. No. Simplicity means being straightforward. Then he talks about accepting a bona fide spiritual master. This is very essential because let's see, anything that we want to learn in this material world, we need a teacher, right? We need knowledge through a bona fide teacher, whether I want to learn dancing, singing, music, guitar, whatever it may be, taekwondo, yoga, whatever it may be. We need knowledge plus a teacher, a certified teacher. So why not for spirituality? So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, accepting a bona fide spiritual master is one of the items of knowledge, and that is very, very essential. Why is he essential? Because a bona fide spiritual master can guide us, he can help us progress. We may say, oh, this is all theory, but Krishna, he set an example. When he came 5,000 years ago, he accepted a bona fide spiritual master. When he came 500 years ago as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he accepted a bona fide spiritual master. So even by setting an example, he is showing us. And how do we approach a bona fide spiritual master? With humility and submissiveness, right? If we approach, say the student goes, to school or to college or whatever, and the professor is there and, is not submissive and, tries to show the teacher, I know more than you, let's see what you can teach me, so that attitude, then the teacher also is like, okay, if you're not really interested in getting knowledge, you can go elsewhere, right? So that submissive nature is very important, where we understand that yes, I don't know much, spiritual knowledge, and I want to learn. And I also know that here is a teacher who knows a lot more than I do, and here is a bona fide teacher who's coming down in strict disciplic succession in parampara. So I am going to approach and I'm going to learn and take guidance from such a bona fide spiritual master. Because if we do not, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that only when one surrenders unto me, that I will give them mercy. So receiving the mercy of a guru and Krishna is going to help us progress spiritually. We cannot do it on our own. So Krishna states that he is within the heart as a super soul, Paramatma, and without, he is the bona fide spiritual master. So we can understand that there is not much difference. Of course, God is God, Guru is Guru, but here Krishna himself is saying that I am situated as Paramatma super soul within, and without, I am the bona fide spiritual master. So accepting a bona fide spiritual master is important. And the disciple, now let's say disciple, what is the meaning of disciple? Someone who follows discipline. Simple as that, right? Regulation. Say, for instance, I fall sick and I go to the doctor will give me medication, but will also give me some do's and don'ts, like diet or whatever it is, right? Some regulation will be there. Okay, don't eat this or don't do this or whatever it is. So similarly, even in spirituality, the disciple means discipline, which means one must regulate one's senses. That's why regulative principles are there, and the rules, are actually very, very important. But we still have a choice whether we want to take it or no. Next comes cleanliness. Mostly when the topic of cleanliness comes, it is considered for the body, right? Outward cleanliness. Well, what about the inward cleanliness, right? We need to clean the inside also, clean the heart also. And that is possible only by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Even Prabhupada mentions in the purport that external cleanliness and internal cleanliness both are very important. And Krishna himself, when he came 500 years ago as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us the process of cleaning our heart. He says, Cheto Darpanam Marjanam. Marjanam means cleansing. So that cleansing of the heart can be done only by chanting. And when we chant, then we start getting purified. Next topic that Krishna talks about is steadiness. And steadiness means there has to be determination. Otherwise, we're not going to be steady, right? Right? That is, determination is important and it is necessary. Others, we cannot achieve success in any area. For instance, I want to start a business. I, invest a lot of money. I get, take a place on lease and start business or whatever it is. But if there is no determination and I have the whatever attitude, oh, it's okay, I'll go whenever I feel like, I'll do when, what is going to be the result? I'm going to lose all my money, right? Because there's no determination. But if I have the determination, no matter what, I want to be successful, then I'm going to put in all that is required. I'm going to get the knowledge, I'll put in the time, the effort, everything. So also in spiritual life, it's important to be steady. Steady means it's not that one day yes, 6 days no, nothing to do, then one day we do something, then 1 month we don't do anything. No, steadiness means it has to be on a daily basis. Then Krishna talks about self-control. That's why Krishna has given us rules, right? He has given us the four regulative principles which are necessary to build our spiritual life. It's the foundation. So no meat eating, fish, eggs, onion, garlic, no intoxication, tea, coffee, no illicit sex, no gambling. These are the four regulative principles. Why are these principles there? So that we can control our senses, right? That is discipline. So that is very important. Also, Rupa Goswami talks about, that we should accept what is favorable to devotional service and reject what is unfavorable. unfavorable, whatever is detrimental to our spiritual life. Why is it that we teach our children to keep good association? Simple. Yes, because they'll get influenced. If there is bad association, they'll get influenced accordingly. So similarly, also even in our in the corporate world, we make sure that we associate with favorable people and we do not associate with unfavorable people. Why? Because association affects our consciousness. So to protect that, then Krishna talks about renunciation. Now question is, what is real renunciation? And Srila Prabhupada talks in his purport that if real renunciation means we accept what is favorable and we reject what is unfavorable, and we have to be aware what is good for our spiritual life, right? Because what happens, our senses, they take us in all different directions. Eyes want to go here, ears want to go there, the tongue wants to taste this or whatever, different directions. But we must understand that the mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is higher than the mind. So the intelligence need to be sharpened with the sword of knowledge. When we give knowledge to the intelligence becomes sharp, and then the intelligence can control the mind, and the mind can control the senses. So this is how it works. So we should somehow or the other take this knowledge and put it into practice. Now, if we cater to the demands of the senses, then we know what's going to happen. There's going to be a downfall. Just to satisfy the demands of the body is necessary, yes, to satisfy the demands of the body, but not go beyond that, not become servants of the senses. We have to understand that we need to control these senses, otherwise these senses will take us in different directions. One of the examples I always give is like, even the scriptures tell us the most difficult sense to control is what? Tongue. Absolutely. So that means, what is the work of the tongue? To vibrate and to taste, right? Eat, right? Two things, right? Vibrate and eat. So if we can somehow the other control these two, that means we eat only Krishna prasadam and we talk only Krishna katha, like chanting, talking about Bhagavad Gita. Of course, at work we have to, be in the material world and do our job. That's a different thing. But somehow the other control the tongue in these two ways. It is said, Vacha Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam. So if somehow the other we can control the tongue, the anger, the belly, if we can do that, make the senses ours, control them, like we become the master of the senses, not the servant of the senses. So all these qualities, Prabhupada also mentions that we can acquire all these qualities simply by devotional service. And devotional service is explained to us in Bhagavad Gita. Even Prahlad Maharaj explains to us 9 processes of devotional service, starting with hearing, chanting, remembering. So if somehow the other we can concentrate on hearing and chanting, that will start the ball rolling, our spiritual ball rolling. Then it will automatically, then, so if we are hearing, then we get a desire to chant. When we chant, then we'll automatically remember. When we remember, then we'll start worshiping. So all the 9 processes will start happening. And then once we do that, once we acquire these qualities, then there will be unalloyed devotional service. Now, what does Prabhupada say? He talks about Krishna is talking about absence of false ego. What is false ego? False ego means I am this body. That is false ego. Real ego means I am the spirit soul. So that we need to understand, that I am, like it is said, Aham Brahmasmi. I am the spirit soul. I am the servant of Krishna. That is real ego. So if we realize I am the soul, that's real ego. But if we identify with the body, then that is false ego. Then Krishna talks about perception of evil of birth, death, disease, and old age. These four things, right? So to understand that the distress of these four, you see, birth, disease, old age, and death, it starts with suffering in the womb, right? 9 months in the womb in that condition, like completely bent, like almost like a alphabet C, right? Like it's staying there in that, So, but of course, we've also heard that besides these four miseries, there are three other miseries. There is miseries caused by the mind and body, miseries caused by other living entities, and miseries caused by material nature. So all these miseries, and not only birth is painful, but death is also very painful. So all these miseries are there. So when Krishna is giving us this knowledge of these 20 items, why not find a solution to end all these miseries, right? Come out of it. Simple process. Again, chant, regulate the senses, and then we will come to the stage of unalloyed devotional service, purified state, and become qualified to go to the spiritual world where there is no birth, disease, old age, or death. You see, no one likes to suffer. If we ask anyone, do you want suffering? Do you like suffering? What will be the answer? Of course not. No one likes to suffer, right? If you ask, do you want happiness? Everyone will say, yeah, welcome all the time, every time, right? Why welcome? Because we don't have it. That's why we want it, right? It's missing, but we don't know where to find it. Bhagavad Gita is telling us that if we take on this knowledge, then it'll be the end of the suffering. Then he talks about detachment from the family. Now, detachment from the family doesn't mean we don't love them. We love them. We have feelings for them. We have affections for them. But there should be no attachment, which means we not just think about their bodily needs, but we also take care of their spiritual needs. That is called affection for the body. So ideally, everyone in the family should be conscious of the Supreme Lord. That is very, very important. So now that we have got this human form of life, we take advantage of that, right? It's not that human life is not meant for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. No, that animals also do. We have to go beyond that. And for that, training is very important. Srila Prabhupada mentions that training is important, which means we must learn to regulate our senses, right? It's not easy to wake up in the morning, right? Especially in winter, it's very difficult to wake up in the morning, but it's important. We wake up in the morning, shower, and then chant in, maybe do arti if we are able to, do some worship. When we do that, then we are preparing our consciousness for the rest of the day. It's like a kavach, it's like we are protecting ourselves from Maya. Maya is going to attack us, of course, so we are protecting ourselves. So what does detachment from the family means? That means everyone in the family gets trained to be Krishna conscious. Arjuna understood detachment. When Krishna was talking in all these chapters, he could understand, because happiness and distress is part of this material world. It's not going anywhere. Is going to be there, because that is this material world. There's no escape. We have performed some activities, our karma. Now we are facing reactions for that. But chapter 3 and 5, we learn from Bhagavad Gita that we can somehow or the other come out of this cycle of karma by performing a karma activities. So this is how we can remain detached. It is possible only when we practice regularly. Then Krishna talks about constant unalloyed devotional service to me, unalloyed devotion to me. And again, that unalloyed devotion, we can come to that stage only when we start hearing and chanting. So very, very important. And then, of course, Krishna talks about living in a solitary place. Now, in Kali Yuga, that's not possible, right? Can you just say, oh, I give up my family, I'm going to go to the Himalayas? Of course, some may be happy to do that. That's besides the point. At least for 2 months. Yes, yes. We hope we can, but that is not possible, because even if we go to a solitary place, our mind is not going to help us remain peaceful, right? There we go, and we'll be thinking of the family. Oh, what's going on? Are they okay? Is their health okay? Right? All that, So in Kali Yuga, it's not possible to live in a solitary place, but we can try to remain aloof from wrong association, not try to mingle unnecessarily and waste time. Then Krishna talks about self-realization. Self-realization is very, very, very important, right? With Bhakti Yoga, we can realize who we really are. Bhakti Yoga is what? Nothing but starting with hearing and chanting. So once we understand who we are, what is our constitutional position, what is our relationship with Krishna, what is our prescribed duty, now one may say, oh, these are too many questions, this is too high. That's why we need guidance. We need someone to help us, to guide us, to understand, and find answers and follow the process. And of course, since we have basic faith, we can somehow or the other make that faith firm so that we can progress spiritually. Now, Prabhupada mentions in the purport also that Krishna can be realized in three phases. We've heard this before. uh, um, he can be realized as in the Brahman. There's Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, and Bhagwan realization, right? So we can understand with the Brahma Jyoti, effulgence as a super soul in the heart, or as the supreme personality of Godhead, Bhagwan himself. So these are the three phases in which we can understand Krishna, but it's important to come to the highest platform, which is Bhagwan realization. And again, that is possible by performing devotional service. So these are the steps of the yoga ladder that we can start going up on. But we can choose, do I want to progress, and at what speed do I want to progress? And also the question is, do I want to go to the topmost rung of this yoga ladder, which is Bhakti Yoga? So that choice we have to make. And of course, the very first item of this knowledge that Krishna gives is humility, right? That if somehow or the other we can develop humility, and humility is necessary to even understand Krishna, even to understand the Bhagavad Gita. And humility is the beginning of knowledge. And the first thing to understand is, I am not the enjoyer, I am the servant of the Supreme Lord. So I have covered all the 6 pages of the purport, and if you all have any questions, you may ask.